My sister told me to kill myself, and my mom laughed. That's when I knew I had to escape. The night I cut my mother's hand and escaped through the window, I realized something worse than her violence. For 17 years, I'd believed I deserved it all. The glow of my phone screen cast ghastly shadows across my bedroom walls as midnight crept by. I stared at the message from Madison, each word like a knife between my ribs. You're worthless. Nobody loves you. Just do it already. My hands trembled, not from fear but from a horrifying realization that crashed over me like an icy wave. It wasn't just Madison who hated me. They wanted me gone. Completely. Every trace of my existence wiped away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Only a hollow coldness crawled up my spine as if I'd already been dead for years. Maybe I had been. The air in this house had always felt heavy, suffocating me slowly. My bedroom, supposedly my sanctuary, was just another cell in this prison called home. The walls seemed to inch closer each day, the invisible bars growing stronger. From the hallway, the ancient grandfather clock ticked relentlessly, each second counting down to something terrible lurking on the horizon. My mother, Maggie Reed, wasn't just a single mom struggling to raise 2 daughters. She was a master manipulator disguised as a caretaker. No one in this world will ever love you like I do, Anna, she'd say, her voice honey-sweet while her eyes remained cold. If I don't love you, who will? Every time those words left her lips, I felt phantom hands tightening around my throat, stealing my breath, my voice, my will. And then there was Madison, my older sister. If Mom pulled the strings, Madison was the executioner. She didn't just hate me, she savored my suffering, collected it like precious gemstones. Who do you think you are? She'd snarl, followed by a swift kick under the table, a contemptuous glare, or a sudden flick to the back of my neck that made me jump. Madison never needed a reason to torment me. She only needed an excuse. I tried to remember the last time I felt safe within these walls. The answer echoed in the emptiness. Never. Even as a child, I'd run to my mother when frightened, only to be pushed away, met with eyes so detached they belonged to a stranger, not a mother. Our dinners were filled with nothing but the scraping of silverware against plates. Laughter? That didn't exist in the Reed household. I had once believed family love would shield me from the harsh world outside. I was wrong. The true cruelty wasn't out there. It lived right here, breathing the same air, sharing the same blood. My finger hovered over the phone screen, but instead of turning it off, I typed a search query that made my heart race. How to run away. My breathing grew heavy in the silence. This thought, it wasn't the first time it had surfaced in my mind, but this time was different. This time, I wasn't just thinking about it. I was going to do it. That evening, I slid into my usual seat at the dinner table, immediately sensing something was off. The silence hung too heavy, too deliberate. Mom wasn't eating, wasn't even pretending to be interested in her food. Instead, her eyes fixed on me with laser-like precision, studying every micro-expression that crossed my face. After what felt like an eternity, she broke the silence, her voice deceptively soft. You've been acting strange lately, Anna. Is there something you want to tell me? My heart thundered in my chest. Did she know? Had she somehow discovered my search history, my desperate plans to escape? I felt the familiar urge to lie, to placate, to make myself smaller and less threatening. I'd perfected that skill over 17 years, but I was tired. So damn tired of pretending. I took a deep breath, set my knife down with deliberate care, and met her gaze. Mom, I want to go to college. I'm leaving. The silence that followed was absolute. The room seemed frozen in time, nothing moving except the second hand of the wall clock. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Counting down to the explosion I knew was coming. Mom slowly placed her teacup on the table with exaggerated precision. No. Just that. One word, flat and final, as if she were declining a telemarketer's offer. I fought to keep my voice steady. Mom, I've made plans. I've saved money. I can't stay here forever. Her hand slammed down on the table, rattling the silverware and sending a splash of water over the rim of my glass. Her face transformed. The mask of maternal concern ripped away to reveal what lurked beneath. You think you can leave me? She screamed, spittle flying from her lips. "Who do you think you are?" A cold laugh echoed from the doorway, sending ice through my veins. Madison stood there, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with undisguised delight. Her eyes gleamed with the sadistic pleasure of a predator spotting wounded prey. "What's this? The little bookworm wants to fly away?" She sauntered toward me, each step deliberate and threatening. She grabbed my chin roughly, forcing my face upward, her nails digging into my skin. "You think you're going to have some different life out there?" she hissed, her face inches from mine. "Look at yourself. You're nothing, and you'll always be nothing." I tried to jerk away, but her grip tightened painfully. Behind her, Mom began to laugh softly, a sound devoid of humor and filled with control. "You will never escape me," she said, her voice now eerily calm. In that moment, watching these two women who should have loved me but instead seemed to feed on my misery, something crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. If I didn't run now, I would be trapped forever. The walls of this house would become my permanent cell, and whatever was left of me, the real me, the person I might become without their poison, would die. I had no choice. I had to escape. And I had to do it fast, before they realized what I was planning. Because if they knew, really knew, they would never let me go. They would rather destroy me completely than set me free. The decision settled in my chest, not with fear, but with a strange sense of calm. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Sleep was impossible after that nightmare dinner. I lay in bed, every sense heightened, listening to the sounds of the house like prey attuned to predators. The muffled drone of the TV downstairs told me Mom was still awake, probably nursing a glass of wine while stewing in her anger. From down the hall came the rhythmic tapping of Madison's fingers against her phone screen. The wall clock in the hallway marked each passing second with mechanical precision. Tick-tock, tick-tock. A countdown to my freedom or my failure. I had to wait. Patience was my only ally now. Under my mattress lay $300. Every dollar I'd squirreled away from the job I'd kept secret for months. Mom thought I was at study group 3 afternoons a week, but I'd been serving coffee at a small cafe downtown, hiding my uniform in my backpack and changing in the cafe bathroom. The manager paid me in cash, which was perfect. No paper trail. Most of my important documents were locked in Mom's filing cabinet. She'd always insisted on keeping them safe for me. Her version of safety meant ensuring I couldn't access my own identity, but I'd been planning this longer than even I realized. 6 months ago, I'd volunteered to help organize Mom's home office while she was at work. She'd praised my initiative, never suspecting I'd made copies of my birth certificate and state ID, hiding them inside a hollowed-out old copy of Jane Eyre on my bookshelf. Mom never touched my books. She called them a waste of time. I mentally inventoried what I could take. 1 hoodie, 2 t-shirts, jeans, underwear, socks, my running shoes. The small pocket knife I'd found in the garage last summer. My toothbrush and deodorant. Phone charger. I couldn't pack too much. A bulging backpack would raise immediate suspicion. My next problem was shelter. Where would I go? I thought of Sarah, a former coworker from the cafe who'd graduated last year. She'd always been kind to me, offering advice and once even saying, "If you ever need help, just ask." With trembling fingers, I typed, "I need help. I have to leave." 3 minutes passed. 5. 10. Each minute stretched like an hour as I stared at the screen. Finally, 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. "Sorry, Anna. Your mom scares me. We can't help you. Please don't contact me again." My heart sank like a stone. Of course, no one wanted to cross Maggie Reed. Her reputation preceded her. The charming facade she showed in public, combined with the whispers about what happened to those who crossed her. I was completely alone. I set my alarm for 12:15 a.m. and tried to rest, knowing I needed all my strength. My escape timeline was simple. 12:30 a.m., change clothes and tie back my hair. 12:45 a.m., final check of my backpack. 1 a.m., slip out through the back door. The house would be silent by then. Mom always took a sleeping pill around 11 p.m., and Madison was usually passed out by midnight after exhausting herself with whatever drama she was creating on social media. When my alarm vibrated under my pillow at 12:15, I silently slid out of bed, already dressed in the clothes I'd sleep in. As I opened my closet to retrieve my backpack, a sudden chill crawled up my spine. Something felt wrong. I turned around and nearly screamed when I saw Madison leaning against my doorframe, watching me with narrowed eyes. "What are you doing?" Her voice was suspiciously casual, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I was certain she could see it through my shirt. "Stay calm. Don't panic." "Just looking for my hoodie," I said, forcing a note of irritation into my voice. "Did you take it again?" Madison studied me for what felt like eternity, her head tilted slightly. Then she shrugged and turned away. "Like I'd want your cheap crap?" I stood frozen until her footsteps faded down the hall, followed by the sound of her bedroom door closing. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. Had she bought my lie? Or was she already plotting to expose me? I couldn't afford any more mistakes. If they caught me trying to leave, it would be worse than anything they'd done before. Much worse. The clock on my phone showed 12:23 a.m., 7 minutes behind schedule already. I needed to move faster. With practiced silence, I retrieved my backpack from its hiding place behind my winter coats. Inside were my documents, money, and essentials, all carefully packed to prevent any rustling sounds. I crept to my bedroom door and pressed my ear against it, listening for any movement. The house had settled into its nighttime silence, punctuated only by the occasional creak of old wood adjusting to the cool night air. Mom's door was closed, a thin line of darkness beneath it. She should be deep in her pill-induced sleep by now, but Madison's light was still on. I could see it glowing under her door as I passed. Was she awake? Was she waiting? Suspecting what I was about to do? My hand tightened around the strap of my backpack. I couldn't turn back now. This was my only chance. 12:45 a.m. The house had fallen into darkness, the silence almost suffocating in its completeness. I eased my bedroom door open, wincing at the barely audible click of the latch. Every movement calculated, every step placed with the precision of someone who had spent years learning how to move through a house without being detected. Down the hallway, past Madison's room where the soft rhythm of her snoring confirmed she was asleep. My grip tightened on my backpack strap. My heart beat so loud in my ears I feared it might wake her. The staircase, 14 steps of ancient wood that had betrayed me countless times with their creaks and groans. I knew which ones to avoid. The 3rd, the 7th, the 9th, and the 12th. I'd mapped them in my mind during endless nights of insomnia, planning for this very moment. As my foot touched the final step, a voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "Where do you think you're going?" Every muscle in my body froze. Mom stood in the living room, a silhouette against the faint moonlight filtering through the curtains. She hadn't made a sound coming downstairs. There had been no warning. She'd been waiting. "I asked you a question, Anna." Her voice was calm, too calm. The dangerous kind of calm that preceded her worst moments. I said nothing. What could I say? The backpack on my shoulder, my outdoor clothes, everything screamed my intentions. She moved closer, her face emerging from the shadows. Her eyes were dark pits, devoid of the maternal love I'd spent my life desperately searching for. "You think you can leave me?" The question wasn't really a question. It was a threat wrapped in disbelief. I took a step back, but she was faster. Her hand shot out, fingers closing around my wrist with shocking strength. "I gave you everything." Her voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "And this is how you repay me." Her grip tightened, nails digging into my skin like talons. I felt the familiar panic rising, the same helplessness I'd experienced 1,000 times before when caught in her grasp. "If you leave, you'll be nothing. I am everything you have." In that moment, a clarity washed over me. This was it, the decisive moment. If I surrendered now, I would spend the rest of my life as her prisoner, withering away until nothing remained of the person I might have been. I yanked my arm back, but her grip only tightened. Desperation surged through me like an electric current. Without thinking, I drove my head forward, connecting with her face. The impact sent a shockwave of pain through my skull, but it worked. She stumbled backward, momentarily loosening her hold. I tore away and lunged for the front door, only to find it locked. Of course it was locked. She'd planned for this. Behind me, Mom regained her balance, blood trickling from her nose. The sight of it transformed her expression from rage to something far worse. Cold, calculating hatred. "Madison!" she screamed toward the stairs. "She's leaving! Madison!" Plan B, the kitchen window. I sprinted through the dining room, knocked a chair over behind me to slow her pursuit, and reached the window above the sink. My trembling fingers fumbled with the latch as I heard her approaching, her breathing ragged and furious. The window swung open, and I hoisted myself up onto the sill. Just as I prepared to jump, I felt a vicious yank on my hair, pulling me back. Mom had reached me, one hand fisted in my hair, the other clawing at my backpack. "You ungrateful little bitch," she hissed into my ear. "I'll break your legs before I let you leave." Panic exploded in my chest. Then I remembered. The pocket knife. My fingers dove into my jacket pocket, closing around the cool metal. I flicked it open and, without hesitation, slashed at her hand. She shrieked, releasing me as blood welled from a cut across her palm. The sound was inhuman, part pain, part disbelief that I would dare fight back. My moment had come. I dove through the window, landing hard on the damp grass below. Pain shot through my ankle, but adrenaline pushed it aside. I scrambled to my feet and ran, my backpack bouncing against my spine with each desperate stride. Behind me, from the gaping window, came Mom's voice. Not a scream now, but something worse. A promise. "You'll regret this. You will never escape me." Madison's bedroom light flicked on upstairs. I heard the front door unlock and slam open. They were coming. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. I ran through our backyard, vaulted the fence, and tore across the neighbor's lawn toward the street. Every shadow seemed to reach for me, every sound like footsteps in pursuit. I had no destination, only direction, away from the house that had been my prison. Away from the people who had twisted love into a weapon. I was free, terrified, injured, and alone, but free. The night air filled my lungs, cold and sweet with possibility. For the first time in 17 years, I was breathing without the weight of their expectations crushing my chest. I was running toward something, not just away. I ran until my lungs burned and my bare feet bled. In my desperation to escape, I'd forgotten shoes, a detail that seemed trivial then, but became agonizing as rough pavement tore at my skin. Still, the physical pain was nothing compared to the terror driving me forward. I didn't dare look back. I had no way of knowing if Mom was following in her car, if Madison had called the police with some fabricated story about a violent, unstable daughter. Mom's final words echoed in my head, a curse that seemed to chase me through the empty streets. "You will never escape me." The neighborhood slept peacefully, oblivious to my flight. No lights flicked on in windows, no doors opened to offer sanctuary. Just silent houses with their secrets tucked safely inside, like mine had been for so many years. I ducked into an alleyway between two buildings, pressing my back against cold brick as I gasped for breath. My hand clutched my backpack. Everything I owned in the world now fit inside this single bag. My money, my documents, a few clothes, the knife, now stained with my mother's blood. Where could I go? I had no friends who would risk Maggie's wrath. No family who would believe me over her carefully crafted public persona. I was truly alone. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. One last desperate attempt. I scrolled to Jamie, a former classmate who'd once offered help when she noticed a bruise I couldn't hide. "Please, I have nowhere to go," I texted. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Hope flickered in my chest. Then, "Anna, I'm sorry. Your family is too dangerous. We can't help you. Don't contact me again." I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then went black. The message was clear. No one would stand against Maggie Reed. No one would risk becoming her enemy. I slid down the wall until I sat on the damp ground, hugging my knees to my chest. Exhaustion and despair washed over me in waves. Had I made a terrible mistake? Was I better off enduring the devil I knew than facing a world that wouldn't help me? Then a memory surfaced. A segment from a documentary I'd watched in secret months ago. It featured shelters for abuse victims. Women who had fled dangerous husbands, toxic families. They found places to start over, places designed specifically to protect people like me. With renewed purpose, I typed into my phone, nearest women's crisis center. An address appeared, 5 miles away. I swallowed hard. Too far to walk normally, but tonight wasn't normal. Tonight was survival. I pushed myself up, wincing as my weight settled on my raw feet. One step, another. Each one a small victory, a few more inches between me and the house I'd never call home again. The night was cold, the wind cutting through my hoodie like it wasn't even there. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since that disastrous dinner hours ago, but hunger was the least of my concerns. I kept to side streets and shadows, avoiding the main roads where Mom might drive looking for me. Once, headlights swept across me, freezing me in place like a terrified deer. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. But the car passed, oblivious to my presence or my panic. The sky began to lighten imperceptibly as I walked. Not yet dawn, but the deepest part of night had passed. My pace had slowed to a painful shuffle, each step leaving small, bloody prints on the pavement. Finally, just as the first hint of sunrise colored the horizon, I saw it. A modest building with a small sign reading, New Beginnings Women's Center. No flashy advertisements, no prominent location, designed to be found only by those who needed it. I hesitated at the door, suddenly afraid. What if they turned me away too? What if they called my mother? What if this was just another dead end in a night full of them? But I had nowhere else to go. I raised my fist and knocked. Moments later, the door opened. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair stood before me. She took in my disheveled appearance, my tear-stained face, my bloody feet without a flicker of judgment. "Do you need help, sweetheart?" she asked simply. Something broke inside me then. Not my courage, which had carried me through the night. Not my resolve, which had grown stronger with each painful step. What broke was the dam I'd built around my emotions, the wall that had kept me functioning all these years. I couldn't speak. Tears streamed down my face, uncontrollable and cleansing. The woman didn't press for words. She simply placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and guided me inside. "You're safe now," she said softly. "You don't have to run anymore." For the first time in my life, I believed those words might actually be true. 3 years later, I sat by the window of my small apartment, watching the morning light spill across the hardwood floor, catching the diamond on my ring finger and transforming it into a prism of colors. In the kitchen, coffee brewed, filling the air with its rich aroma. Simple pleasures that once seemed impossible, the nightmares had mostly stopped. I no longer woke up gasping for breath, convinced I was back in that house with those hands reaching for me in the dark. I no longer flinched at loud noises or apologized for taking up space. The phantom grip around my throat that had been my constant companion for 17 years had finally loosened its hold. I had done what they said I couldn't. I had survived without them. Thrived even. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I almost ignored it. I'd been trying to focus less on the endless cycle of distressing headlines, but something made me glance down. Woman arrested for child abuse, faces multiple felony charges. I scanned the article, my heart stuttering when I saw the name. Maggie Reed. She had fostered a young boy about a year after I left. A child she likely saw as my replacement, a new vessel for her twisted version of love. But this time, a neighbor had witnessed her cruelty and recorded it. This time, there were bruises that couldn't be explained away. This time, her manipulative charm wasn't enough to fool the authorities. The article included her mugshot. She looked smaller somehow, her features hardened and bitter, the mask of maternal concern completely gone. She would serve time. She would never hurt another child. The system that had failed me had finally caught up to her. As for Madison, without Mom's protection and financial support, she had spiraled. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd lost her job, her apartment, her carefully constructed social media persona of success. Without someone to torment, she had turned her cruelty inward. My phone pinged with a message from an unknown number, but I recognized the writing style immediately. "You think you've won?" 3 years ago, those words would have sent ice through my veins. I would have looked over my shoulder for weeks, convinced they would find me, drag me back, punish me for daring to be free. But now, I just laughed. A short, dry sound that contained no humor but plenty of closure. I blocked the number without hesitation or regret. Her words could no longer reach me. Her opinion no longer mattered. I looked out the window at the city coming to life below. People walking dogs, hurrying to work, living ordinary lives untouched by the kind of darkness I had escaped. I took a deep breath, feeling the sun warm on my face. For the first time in my life, I knew with absolute certainty that I was truly free. The chains that had bound me weren't just unlocked, they were shattered, turned to dust. I felt arms wrap around me from behind, gentle and loving. My fiancé rested his chin on my shoulder, following my gaze out the window. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. I smiled, leaning back into his embrace, marveling at how easily I accepted affection now, how I no longer questioned whether I deserved it. "Nothing," I said. "Just that I finally won." And I had. Not just by escaping, but by healing. Not just by surviving, but by reclaiming the life that should have been mine all along.